What is Mastodon? Let's talk about that. So Mastodon, I want to stay first off. I don't think we can just categorically say that it is the best social media. Um, I don't want anyone to walk away from this presentation thinking that Mastodon is the social media you should run to in the Twitter apocalypse. I don't think that anyone should feel like Mastodon is the one place to go market your platform if you're an artist or a game developer or uh, some other kind of person that is marketing their game or their content to an audience. I think Mastodon is a good place to do that, but I don't think it is like the end all be all. I just want to provide more information about what Mastodon is because it's the most misunderstood. People try and go to Mastodon because they're interested about it, and then it feels really confusing and overwhelming, and then they leave. And I really don't like that the retention rate for Mastodon is so low. I would really like people to feel like they can understand what's going on there. And that's what this presentation is all about. So it's not about me trying to convince you that Mastodon is the best. I don't think it's the best. I just want people to understand it better. Um, so hopefully that makes sense to y'all. Hopefully, now that we've got that out of the way, we can talk about it a little more. And one concept that you'll hear thrown around a lot when we're talking about Mastodon is this really big word that's kind of scary, and it's called fediverse. And fediverse is a term that's used in relation to Mastodon because it's a different way of structuring your social media. People feel really confused and overwhelmed when they hear people within the Mastodon culture talking about the Fediverse. It's a spooky word, and I just want to provide some clarity really quickly of the word Fediverse, right? So Fediverse is just a portmanteau of the words federated and universe. So it has nothing to do with the federal government. This is not a place for Big Brother to spy on you. They're already doing that, and so many other social medias. If you read the terms and whatever, this has nothing to do with like far right government conspiracy theorists that are saying like, oh, the Fediverse is out to get you. They're here to steal your data or whatever. Mastodon is actually one of the most data private social medias that you can jump onto. They anonymize your IP address and a couple other pieces of data, but for the most part, the only information that's publicly accessible is the information that you share on your own posts and profile and things like that. They're not tracking hardly any data, and that's because Mastodon is crowdfunded and it's open sourced by a community of people that really love the social media, and it's not driven by a corporation or a government or a brand or anything like that. And it's called Federated, and what that term means is that there are multiple servers talking to one another, which we will dig into in just a second. I'll show you all some pictures to help explain that. But essentially what it is that there's not just one location where your data lives. For Twitter or Instagram or something, like everyone has their profile on the same server, but on Mastodon, everyone's profile can be on different servers, but those servers can still talk to each other. So you're not stuck in a room with only the people in your server. You can still go out and chat with everyone else. However, you do have to choose a place to live within Mastodon. You are not able to just be like on the one end all be all instance. You got to choose somewhere to live. And we can take a look at an example of that here. I found someone on Mastodon. So now we're looking at the Mastodon interface, as you can see. And someone on Mastodon posted this really helpful graphic that I thought I would share with y'all. And it says, how does federation work? This is simplified by the super cool Z Sombor, who is on the Mastodon instance wobble.xyz. So he's chosen his home to be wobble.xyz, but that doesn't have to be your home. And so you can think of your server as a small town with a post office, right? So we'll say that our small town is called @barn.yard. That's the server where we live. Our name is @cat. That's who we are. And our friends are bear, duck, pig, and bull. And they all exist within our server called Barnyard. And you can see that our full profile name isn't just @duck. It would be @duck @barn.yard. But when you're interacting with people from your same town or your same instance, then you don't have to include the second because you're talking locally. You're not talking to another server. So if I wanted to send mail from cat to bear, I would just send a message from myself to my post office, and my post office would send that message to bear. So we send a message to our local server, and our server sends that out to any of our followers. So if you're following the cat, then you'll receive messages from the cat. If you don't follow cat, you might receive messages from cat in a different way, which we'll cover later, but you won't receive them directly. But if you want to talk to people in the big city, Mastodon handles this for you. Your server will send your messages to other servers. You can think of them like town post offices. So my town's post office will send all of my letters going to another state to that new city's post office. And then that post office will distribute messages to its local residents. So we can still communicate between one another. It's just that instead of having one place where all of our messages, all of our profiles live, Mastodon is set up in a way that's quote unquote federated, meaning that there are multiple post offices everywhere, multiple servers you can live on, and those servers that you live on will distribute messages between servers for you and also within the server to the server's residents. What servers, how does it know what servers to send it to? So it's a little complicated, Jess, but essentially each server tracks a list of all of the people on other servers that its members follow. So going back to this example, the @barn.yard server would keep track of all of the people that cat follows from big.city. And then if cat wants to send a message to big.city, the barnyard would handle that communication. The post office has all of the info of who subscribes to where. Yes, Jesse, thank you. Neo says it's with servers that are not as separated as Discord, but not as general as Twitter. No, you don't need to apologize at all. Honestly, Mastodon is like really difficult to figure out, and that's what we're doing here. That's why we're all gathered today. So don't think of servers like you think of Discord servers. Think of servers like post offices. They're all still talking to each other and sending messages to one another. I feel like server is a really difficult word to understand if you're coming from a Discord context. But post office, I feel like, is a good analogy. If you want to use the official Mastodon word, it's instance, INSTANCE. And those instances talk to one another. But because they're called instances, they all run the same communication protocol. They all know how to speak the same language, and so they're constantly talking to one another and sharing messages. How do I know which server to go to? We'll cover that later. Don't worry. I'll help you with that, Neo. We're going to talk about what an instance is, all right? We've already talked about this a little bit. It's basically just where you live, your home base, where you've chosen your account to live. I'm feeling federated. I love that that's becoming like the motto of today's stream. That's amazing. Okay, so an instance is where you've chosen to put your account. That's all it means. Your account home doesn't matter too much when you think about who you're going to follow in the future or what kinds of people you want to get connected to. But I do recommend choosing an instance that matches your vibe. And what I mean by that is that there's going to be unique groups of people that form around common culture or common ideals. A lot of times you'll see servers for furries or servers for people from the gay community or servers related to technology, servers related to game dev, servers related to art. There's all of these different communities forming on Mastodon that are hosting instances around a common topic. And it's pretty cool. And the other cool thing about an instance is that your instance moderates itself. So when you're hanging out on Mastodon, you want to choose a server whose ideals and rules line up with what you would like to see on Mastodon or on your social media experience at large. So we'll talk a little bit about moderation later, but just keep in your minds right now, every instance holds a unique stance on what they allow and what they don't allow posts to be. So there might be some art servers that allow lewd art, and there might be some art servers that say we would like that to be hidden behind a content warning. There might be other art servers that want to say no lewd art at all. They have their own mod teams. Yes, that's also true. Each instance has their own moderator team, so you're going to find unique people being moderators. And if you just really don't like who you're stuck with as a moderator, then here's the cool thing about instances is you can migrate your account. You can take all of your followers with you, all of your posts, and Mastodon guarantees that instances will speak the same language. And so there's a communication protocol in place for migrating all of your data to another instance if you don't like your home base anymore. So say I've joined a space. I didn't realize it at first, but they just love crypto and NFT and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, heck, get me out of here. I can just migrate my account to another space, another instance. And now I'm out of that community and I'm in the new community where I feel more comfortable and happy. This is similar to how subreddits have their own rules. Yes, although that for the sake of rules, that is true, Lemon. Although Reddit is a dangerous comparison because Reddit still hosts all of their data and servers in one spot because Reddit is a corporate entity that is holding all of that data. Whereas Mastodon is individuals that put servers in their rooms or in their garage or whatever and runs their instances by themselves. Mastodon is really just an agreement to communicate the same and a batch of code that you can run. Like anyone can just start a Mastodon instance, which I think is pretty cool. If my instance goes down, does that mean I can't log into Mastodon? That's a great question, Nady. If your instance goes down, then you can't log into your instance of Mastodon, but you can still create a new account on a new instance. And hopefully your server admins have been announcing to you for the past couple of weeks, hey, we're going to be shutting down this week. Please migrate your account somewhere else. And you've had some heads up to migrate your account. But there are sometimes like DDoS attacks that happen on individual instances, or sometimes people have to do some server maintenance or things like that. And so your instance might run slow while other instances are running fine. So let's talk about culture. What should we do or not do on Mastodon so that we respect the culture that's in place, right? Whenever you're learning a new social media, there's always that learning period where you don't really know like how to post, what sorts of things to do in your post, when to retweet people, when not to retweet people, all that sort of stuff. So let's do a brief breakdown on Mastodon culture, right? And a lot of this was because Mastodon was started 5 years ago, and it's been growing ever since. There's been a huge wave of migrated accounts, people coming from Twitter in 2022 when Elon Musk first became CEO. That's when I joined. And then new account sign up died off for a little bit. And now there's another new wave of accounts coming in, which is why I'm doing this presentation, because there's a lot of new people interested in Mastodon. And I want to share the things that I learned a year ago when I was first going through all of this. Let's talk about the buttons on Mastodon. So if you can see, can I zoom in? Oh, it's getting real big. This star down here, this star is called favorite. It's roughly equivalent to a like on Twitter or other platforms. However, people generally use favorites to mark things that they want to come back to later. They're not, a lot of people don't favorite things just because they look nice. They'll do something called boosting instead, which we'll cover in a second. but favorites are generally something that you want to go back and look on later. And about like, I would say 50% of Mastodon follows that. Other people just spam favorites as if it was a like button, and that's just fine too. I mean, you can do whatever you want. It's always kind of nice to say, like, hey, I liked your post to the author. An important thing to remember is that favorites aren't shared because Mastodon doesn't have algorithms. So you won't ever see someone's post float up in your feed that says such and such liked this post or such and such favorited this post. That's not gonna happen because the timeline isn't algorithmic, it's chronological. So favorites are just for you and the author. It's like a nice little high five, you did a great job, or hey, I want to check this out later. But it's not I think my followers should have a chance to see this too. That's when you use boost. Is a favorite more like a bookmark? Yeah, you could consider a favorite like a bookmark. A lot of people consider it like a high five to the author, like, hey, you did a great job. But like I said, that's it's not private per se, but it's not going to push that post to other people's timelines. The amount of favorites impact how much the post is seen in recommended timeline. There is no recommended timeline limit, which is what I'm trying to get at. Number of favorites means nothing except for how good you feel as an author for getting a lot of favorites. But there's no recommended timeline. There's no algorithm governing what posts get seen or not seen. It's all chronological. So as soon as it gets posted, it's seen by everyone, and then it gets buried by everyone else's posts as time goes on. So that actually is a great segue, Lemon, thank you, into the next icon we've got, which is Boost. These arrows might look familiar to you. They kind of look like a retweet from Twitter. It's called a boost on Mastodon. And a boost is basically just, I'm going to repost this thing that someone authored on my timeline for my people to see. Either people that follow me, people on my local server, or people, not server, sorry, people on my local instance, or people on federated instances that communicate with my instance. So a boost just says, please show this to other people within my community, right? And it's very common, and it's even encouraged for people that are trying to show their post off in a way that's like, my shop opened, or I just posted a new YouTube video, or look at this cool art I made, or things like that, where you're trying to get it in front of a lot of people. It's encouraged and recommended to boost your own post after like 12 hours, 24 hours, something like that. There's a culture that's very kind and accepting towards boosting your own post so that it can be seen again. And the reason why you would do that is because, again, it's a chronological timeline. And so you want to see people from different time zones getting to see your work. Because people's timelines are flooded at different points of the day with other people posting their stuff. So if I post at 8 a.m. in the morning, I might get the early risers in the US, I might get the lunchtime European crowd, and I might get the evening Australian crowd. And then if I boost again at noon, I might get the early risers in Australia. And I mean, you can see how it cascades. Boosting at different times throughout the day might help. Although you also want to be careful about spamming your same post over and over again, because the people that are on Mastodon a lot are going to see it a lot, and they're going to be like, hey, why is this person shilling their stuff all the time? So I would recommend boost once after 12 to 16 hours if you're going to boost it again at all, because you don't want to be annoying either. Mastodon is very communal, so you want to try and respect everyone's space. And yeah. And then probably the biggest form of currency or social currency on Mastodon is comments. People are very conversational here. People want to chat and ask questions about one another. So it would be really cool if you're brand new to Mastodon and you want to get to know people, to leave comments on things that you see. Just say like, hey, this is really cool art, or like, wow, I never thought about that topic in that way, or things like that. And just trying to like make meaningful connections with people. People really, really enjoy talking and communicating with one another. It's a great place for networking. Because it's not algorithmic, it might be a weaker place to do marketing and advertising, because you're not going to get recommended to other people. It's just chronological. So it might be weaker for marketing, but it's great for networking and chatting with other people, seeing what other people in the world are up to. Last thing about Mastodon culture is that there's a huge bias towards accessibility, which I think is a really, really cool thing that people care so much about accessibility. It obviously depends from instance to instance, but a lot of instances have members that say, we will not boost your post if it does not have alt text. And that goes for videos or images, because Mastodon allows you to write alt text for videos and images. People are less likely to boost your post if you don't include alt text. And people also generally prefer you to put content warnings on a lot of different things. You'll see content warnings for food because we understand and accept that there are people with food-related mental illnesses out there. You'll see content warnings for eye contact. You'll see content warnings for bugs and insects. A lot of common phobias that exist, you'll see content warnings for. And then obviously the big ones like violence or gore or lewd content. There's obviously people that are putting content warnings on there too. So highly encourage you, if you're going to become a member of some Mastodon instance, use the accessibility features presented to you, use the content warning system presented to you. Those are two really big important things that people do on Mastodon, and they'll generally not want to interact with your posts if you don't do those things. Oh, sorry, one more thing. This is important too because it's different. On Twitter, you might know that the algorithm will like shadow ban your post in a way if you include too much blue text. And what I mean by blue text is adding someone using that little @ symbol, using hashtags, or using hypertext links. Those three things, generally the Twitter algorithm devalues and pushes your post down instead of pushing it up to other people's timelines. On Mastodon, there's no algorithm, and hashtags are a way that people discover your content. So throw as many hashtags as you want on there, get really creative. The only thing that you should keep in mind about hashtags is that people want to see them be accessible hashtags. So instead of writing hashtag game development like this, a great way to accommodate screen readers is to do hashtag game development like this. And that's because the capital letter will let screen readers know, hey, this word is a unique word. Even though there's no space in between them, you should read them as separate words. So then the screen reader won't try and read game development all as one word. It'll read them as two words, which I think is super cool. So you'll see a lot of hashtags that look a little funny because they've got uppercases in weird spots, but that's because of the that's because people on Mastodon are trying to accommodate accessibility. Tags really are just for labeling purposes. It's for people to discover your content. So a lot of times people will follow a hashtag, which is something you can do on Mastodon. You can choose to follow a particular tag, and then you'll see posts from those tags show up in your timeline. And so say I want to follow game development. I can do that, and now I don't need to go search for all of the game developers on Mastodon. Anytime someone uses that hashtag, it shows up in my feed, which I think is super cool. Next slide, please. I don't know why I said please. I'm the person running the slides, by the way. There's no one behind me doing stuff. How do I get started? All right, here we go. The fun part. I'm going to post this in chat, and y'all can choose to follow along if you wish. There is no need to. You can just sit back and enjoy. But if you want to get up to something with me, you can follow along here. I'm going to try and zoom out. There we go. And we're going to go to join mastodon.org/servers. When you click on that link, you'll see this page. So how do we decide which instance we want to join, right? There are many instances out there. This site will show you instances that exist. However, there are many other instances that exist that aren't on this list. These are just servers that have said, yes, official Mastodon website, we would like to be featured there because our communities are public and open to everyone. Whereas some servers, like the one I've joined, have said, we don't want a massive influx of users. We would prefer to keep things a little bit more cozy. So we don't want to be featured on the website here. But if you still want to sign up to those secret instances, you totally can. You just go to their page. Let me open an incognito window for us. If you go to mastodon.art, you'll see the sign in button here, and then you can choose to create an account on there, and their sign in process will take you through. Every instance has a unique sign in process, so you'll need to like answer questions and agree to rules and things like that. But anyways, so we're looking at Mastodon. Join mastodon.org/servers. There are lots of great choices here. You can filter by the region that it's in so that you have a low ping, because depending on where the instance is hosted, it might mean that your data has longer to travel, which means your ping might be higher. You can sort by topic. There's a lot of spaces related to tech and the LGBTQ plus community. Those are two really common topics that people gather around on Mastodon, but there's also a lot of other things, gaming and tech and music and activism and all sorts of fun stuff. So you can really curate the experience that you have on Mastodon, at least within your local timeline, by choosing a place that you think looks good to you. And it's okay. Don't feel a lot of stress or anxiety about the choice that you make here. What would be good is to join an instance, whichever one looks interesting to you, get to know how things work, make a few posts, say hi, get to know it a little bit better. And then once you know the vibe of the space that you've chosen, if you want to change, go ahead and do so. But don't get too caught up in this, because it's not like the end all be all decision. You can always migrate your account. You're not in danger of making a big critical decision and then it's locked in place forever. You can always switch instances. I just want to give that reassurance. So feel free to explore while we chat for the rest of the presentation. I would encourage y'all to just click around and see what's out there, you know? I'm personally on an instance called mastodon.art. So if you just type in https://mastodon.art, you'll see my instance where I live presented to you. I've chosen to live there because I follow a lot of artists in general. I really like to see beautiful art because I live so much in a technologically like logic focused space that my brain is always tired of looking at logic stuff. I just want to see beautiful art. So I live on mastodon.art, and they also, lucky for me, appreciate game developers there, and they want to see game development posts, so I can provide that for them. That's also where Anchi lives, so Anchi and I are partying in the same spot. I think Mossy Pine is there as well, which is super cool. There's also people making .games. I know a lot of people in my stream make games. They're game developers, so people making .games is a great space to be if you're a game developer. Another cool space to be if you're a game developer is mastodon.gamedev.place. So that's another one to check out as well. Yeah, here, let me say this. People making .games is one of them, and mastodon.gamedev.place. There you go. Okay, so you've joined Mastodon. You've created an account, you've chosen your instance, you like the rules there, you want to get started. What are we doing, right? What do we do first when we first join Mastodon? So people want to see someone who is excited to engage with their community, right? Which means creating a profile picture, which means uploading a banner, which means writing in your About Me section or your little bio. You have to share a little bit of yourself if you want people to start following you and getting to know you better. You can totally go full anonymous if you want. That's fine. It's just people might ignore your replies or not want to interact with you because they're expecting to see a human behind the account that you've joined, or a furry, or I mean whatever you identify as, an entity. They expect to see an entity behind the account, not a bot or AI presence. So you should fill out your profile. And then what you want to do is you want to make a hashtag introduction post. This is a really popular, really hot hashtag that people browse somewhat frequently to find folks that are brand new to Mastodon. So you want to create a post that says, "Hi, I'm Fletch. Here's the kind of content that I make. Here's the kind of stuff that I enjoy seeing." Share whatever you want about yourself there. I highly recommend sharing some of, like, if you make stuff like art or game development or music or whatever, highly recommend sharing something in your introduction post so that people know exactly what kind of content they're getting if they follow you. So make a hashtag introduction post with the actual tag in your post. Share a little bit about yourself, post some content, and then boost it after like 6 to 12 hours. And that is a great way to start meeting people. People usually pop into the replies and say hi. They want to get to know you better. And they will come hang out with you. And you'll start finding new people. They'll start finding you. And you can start building your own little group of people that you like to hang out with. Jesse has very helpfully provided some guidelines for the header image and profile picture. Header images, I believe, it says 1500 by 1500, although it gets small to approximately a 3:1 resolution. So I think it's like 1500 by 500 or something like that. But you can upload something larger than that, it would seem from Jesse's message. And then profile picture is 400 by 400. So just keep those resolutions in mind for when you're creating your profile, and have fun. If you want to see my profile, just so you can get an idea of what sorts of information I've included, where's the browser? There we go. If you want to see what sorts of things I've included on mine, mastodon.art/@FletchMakesStuff. This is my personal profile. You can see my banner. I didn't size it quite correctly, so some of these icons are cut off in the bottom. I've got my profile picture here. And then a little bit about myself. I'm a game dev content creator, and I like to label myself as a friend because I'm always looking to meet new people. Business inquiries for people that are interested in doing some promotional stuff on my stream. A little bit about what I'm doing right now, which is I'm working with a team to make therapy. I should put something in here about Devolver Digital too, because I work with them pretty frequently. And then Twitch, and then profiles also have tags associated with them, and people can find you through your profile tags. So it's always a good idea to include a couple tags that talk about yourself. So you've got control over all this stuff. You can also add custom items here. So like I've added one called pronouns, and I've put he, him in there, and then I've added one called find me everywhere with my bio.link. You can literally type in whatever you want for this label and this. So if I go to edit, you can see that we can put any kind of label we want here. So we could say this is a test and say I did this on stream, and now you can hit save changes. And now if we go back to my profile here and we refresh, you can now see this is a test, I did this on stream. Easy enough. You can put anything you want in those labels. And then another cool thing about your profile is you can pin as many posts as you want. So I've got this one posted. You're here. If you're watching this, you made it. You're here. Good job. I've got one about therapy, which is a game I'm working on right now. And I've got a pinned post about my introduction. You can see I've used hashtag introduction there. And then now it goes chronological. Since we're no longer in my pinned posts, it goes chronological from here, from the last things I was looking at. The pins go in chronological order of the order you pinned them in. Most recent pins go to the top. So if you want to reorganize your pins, you can unpin and repin to get that pin pushed to the top. Does that make sense, Lem? It's not chronological order of post, it's chronological order of pinning. As many as you want? Yes, Manuk. As many pins as you want. Can you edit posts after posting them? You can edit, yes. If I wanted to edit this post, we would just click on edit or delete and redraft, which is super fun. You can edit as many times as you want. That's not locked behind anything. If you make a spelling mistake, if you forgot to use a content warning and someone reminds you about it, you can go back and add the content warning later. It's super, super free. Yeah. What is delete and redraft? It'll basically hide, well, not hide, it'll delete the post from everyone's timelines and then allow you to completely remake it. So it won't show a history of edits. When you edit, it shows you the history of edits that have happened to it. But if you delete and redraft, it won't show people that you've redrafted the post. It'll just appear brand new in their feed with whatever edits you put in there. Like I said, Mastodon is super open about just wanting you to edit and redraft and do whatever you need to do to get your post right, which I think is super cool. There is low stakes posting environment here. Okay, so we've talked about updating your bio, updating your profile picture and header image, and making an introduction post, right? What's the next step after that? I would highly recommend getting to know the people within your instance itself. So hop into the local channel, which you can find here on the side. If you hop into local, you'll see posts from people that are hosted by mastodon.art. You can see that someone has created a piece of art that's lewd. They've shown it behind a content spoiler, which is awesome. Thank you for not ruining my broadcast. And we're going to skip right past it for terms of service. And you can see anyone that's in this timeline, whether you follow them or not, they live on my instance. So all of these people are from mastodon.art. And we can just go through and look at all of people's text posts, all of people's images. If you don't want to see something that, oh, this is really cute. I love ducks. Oh, we're going to boost that. If you don't want to see something that someone has chosen to show, you can always just hide if it's disturbing to you. So these are all posts from people from my local timeline. And I highly recommend you spend your first hour or so on Mastodon just going to your local timeline and following as many people as you find interesting and boosting posts and commenting and saying hi. A recommendation I saw recently was someone said the 555 rule. You should every day try and leave 5 comments, boost 5 different things, and post 5 things yourself. Although I would argue posting 5 things yourself, I'm not that creative to make 5 unique posts every day. So that one is has like wiggle room, but definitely try and boost 5 things and write 5 comments just to meet new people. But five replies and 5 boosts is hopefully low enough bar to get you out there. And if you need to change that to like 2 a day, 2 replies and 2 boosts, that's totally fine. I mean, we don't want to be people that are consumed with social media. I think Mastodon lends itself really well to touching grass because it's a chronological timeline, and when you see old posts, you know you're done. There's nothing more to discover, so just go outside. But to meet new people, highly recommend commenting and boosting. Muting and blocking is super powerful. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, there are lots of really cool tools out there to keep you safe and keep your mental health intact on Mastodon. It's very mental health friendly, which I think is super, super cool. If you want to get wild, if you're feeling real brave, you go to Federated. And Federated could have anything in it. You can see as soon as I click this button, there's already 3 new items that aren't being shown to me. But it's snappy. It moves all the time. It goes quick. So if you look, if there's already 9 new posts made. If you want to really meet a lot of people that have unique interests in diversity, highly recommend going to Federated. But I personally don't like coming here. It's too stressful for me. So I generally stick to local and then explore for the hashtags that I like to follow. I've also got lists. You can make lists of your people. So I've got art friends in one list. I've got corporate news like itch.io or Godot or things like that that I want to follow. I've got my game dev pals, and then I've got my moot toots because instead of called tweets, these are called toots. And I've put all my mutuals in this list. Moot toots. Are they really called toots? They are indeed called toots. Mastodon's mascot is an elephant, so it's called a toot. Is Federated everyone on Mastodon? Soren, kind of. It's not literally everyone on Mastodon. It's everyone that your instance knows about. So if you've if someone on your instance has made a connection to someone else's instance, like I followed someone from that instance, or um, it's following. If you follow someone from another instance, that instance becomes federated with yours, and then so federated for like a large server like Mastodon.social is probably pretty much everyone. But for us, if you're on a smaller instance with only like a couple hundred people, federated is going to be much less chaotic because there's less connections being made between different instances. First hour on Mastodon, spend a lot of time in local, just getting to know people. Um, Highly recommend that. Uh, doo -doo -doo. If you want to follow someone, so if you know someone exists and you want to follow them, let's say I really want to follow Zep, who created Pico 8. I love Pico 8. If you know me, you know that I love Pico 8. What you can do is type in at their username, so at ZEP, and then at the instance they're from. And Zep is from Mastodon.social. So at Zep at Mastodon.social, that's his unique identifier. I hit search. You'll see he pops up right away. I click on his profile, and now I can follow him. Or in this case, unfollow him because I already follow him. So if you want to find individual people that maybe your server doesn't federate with yet, you can use that. Another thing you can do is if someone gives you their profile information, like this. Nope, not that. Sorry. If I put my link in here, you can actually paste someone's profile link into the search bar and hit enter, and it'll pull up that person's profile too. So 2 ways to search, either using at username, at instance, or you can use their instance URL itself to search for someone. Follow requests, yeah, so you can set your profile to private, and then you have full control over who follows you. So if you don't want anyone to be able to come see your stuff, you can set up your profile to have follow requests, and then you individually go through every single follow request and you hit check mark. I haven't done that. I've got a public profile. The reason I have a follow request is because someone from an instance that my instance has blocked, which we'll get to later in the presentation, someone from an instance that my instance is blocked trying to follow me, and because my instance moderators have said people from this instance are unsafe, we want to give you a follow request instead of like a full-on they can follow you instantly. Also search for them in Google, click on it. If you click on follow, it pop up the link you need to use as well. Yes, thank you, Achi. Thank you. It's honestly disorienting at first how to follow people from other instances. You're gonna be a little confused. Feel free to hop in my Discord, ping me, ask a question, do whatever you need to do to get in touch with me, and I can help you through the process. But once you do it once or twice, it'll become second nature. It's just one of those things you got to learn. When we're doing a new social media, we got to learn, and I'm sorry that exists, but it's going to be inevitable. Do it once or twice and it gets second nature. Yeah, exactly, Achi. Exactly. Highly recommend that you get people from your other audiences to, if you want Mastodon to become a platform for you, not just like a place to hang out, but like an actual platform to market your stuff, get people from your other audiences to come follow you by sharing your Mastodon profile link like this. That'll just make it easier for them to get to you. Okay. What is engagement like? This is something that someone asked me this morning, and I really wanted to address it. And what this question is getting at is, what does post engagement look like if I am a creator trying to show what I do to other people? How does it compare to other platforms? I, first of all, am not an expert in this. I've done a little bit of content creation on Twitter, and even less so on Instagram and other platforms. Twitter is where I'm most active, and I'm not very big. I only have like 900 followers on Twitter. So what I have to say about this is all anecdotes from people that I've heard talk about this with larger followings. So take it with a grain of salt. But generally speaking, your post engagement for marketing stuff is lower than other platforms. And that's simply because other platforms use an algorithm to boost posts that are doing well to strangers' timelines. And so people generally don't engage with your post as quickly or as often. But thank you, Emma. What Emma is saying is that conversion is higher, and that's because you've formed mutual connections and trust between accounts. And so you'll generally see the same people interacting with your post over and over again very consistently. Because it's a chronological timeline, so when you post, it gets seen by everyone that follows you. It is guaranteed to hit their timelines. It's not going to be shadow banned. It's not going to be hidden because it's not getting enough engagement. So your conversion rate is generally higher, but your discoverability is generally lower. So hopefully that makes sense. Obviously, boosts offset that a bit. So if you get a really fire post that's getting boosted a lot, it's going to be shown to a larger group of people, just thanks to the fact that everyone has a different followers list. And it might get federated to another server because of the way that system works. It's going to show up in people's local timelines. So that can offset things a little bit, but the general rule of thumb is that your engagement is going to be lower and that your consistent conversion rate is going to be higher. Hopefully that makes sense. If you want to get more reach, again, a common strategy is to boost your post about like 12 to 16 hours after you post it so that it hits another time zone of people logging onto Mastodon and seeing what's new. Okay, let's talk about moderation. Let's talk about personal moderation first, and then let's talk about instance moderation next. Okay. Personal moderation looks like blocking other folks. It looks like muting other people so you don't see their posts show up. On other platforms like Twitter, it looks a lot the same. You block, you mute, you turn your profile private so you can have follow requests instead. That's what personal moderation looks like. It's pretty similar. Can you block by tag? Let's find out. Filters. Okay, so filters exist. So filters are a good form of personal moderation. I have blocked the hashtag threads for all of the meta related stuff, Facebook, Instagram, and Zuckerberg, because I don't really care about all of the social media controversy and gossip. I really hate seeing it in my timeline. So I've applied filters for threads. And I've also applied filters for Twitter related nonsense because people are always ranting about how bad Twitter is. And it just creates this like vibe of like negativity, I guess. Even though I also don't like Twitter that much, it feels really negative all the time. And I just don't want, I want to say positive things, you know? I just want to be happy. So I've blocked these filters. So yes, so Lemon, you can block hashtags, but instead of blocking the hashtag, you add a filter. I wish there was a good place. I know. I like that filters have multiple words. Yeah, so you can group all of your filters underneath a title. You can set it to expire after a certain amount of time. So if you're tired of seeing Twitter discourse right now, but you want it to expire in like a week, that's totally fine too. And then you can put as many terms as you want within that filter. It's super, super flexible. You can also choose to just hide the post completely as if it didn't exist. Or you can hide the post with a content warning that says, hey, this includes information about Twitter. Do you want to see it? Very handy to avoid spoilers too. Yeah, so if a new video game comes out or a new movie, you can hide keywords behind filters. Thank you, Emma. That's perfect. You can also choose where the filter applies. So your homepage, which is people that you follow, and your lists. You can apply it to your notifications. So if you don't want to see particular things in your notifications, but you don't mind seeing them elsewhere, you have control over that. Public timelines would be like local and federated, those two news feeds that we talked about. Conversations or private DMs, and profiles would be people's profiles. You can also have automated post deletion. So you can have your posts deleted automatically if they've reached a certain age. That's super helpful as well. And then your data is free for you to import or export. So you can find all of your stats and request your archive if you need to do that, especially for GDPR purposes. Super helpful. So that's personal moderation. Those are the controls that you have access to tailor your feed to your liking, right? Let's talk about how instances moderate. So like we've said earlier in the presentation, your instance can decide on the rules that those moderators will moderate against. So like my instance has things about codes of conduct that might be more strict than other people's, but that's because they're trying to protect people with disabilities and mental illnesses and things like that. So they're trying to be very protective of the community they let in, and so they have a lot more rules in place. And again, that's instance to instance. So if you don't like the rules that are on your instance, you can always just migrate to another instance. Not a problem. The tools are in place for you to do that. You don't have to break your back to do so. You can just Google how to migrate my account on Mastodon and it'll walk you through the steps. Another thing that instances can do is block another instance. So for example, my instance, mastodon.art, is not friendly towards NFT or crypto. And so they have blocked some crypto topical servers or topical instances on Mastodon. What that means is that you can still follow people from there, but people following you need to click follow request, not follow immediately. You won't see their posts in your local or federated because your instance has blocked them, but you will see them in your home because you've chosen to follow them. So it's private to you if your instance is blocked another instance, but you're following someone from there. There are definitely hate groups on Mastodon, okay? And their community admins for large instances have Google Docs where they share dangerous instances between one another. And so there's this like hidden community within Mastodon where all of the moderators of large instances are talking and they're saying, hey, this is a problematic group of people. They are promoting hate speech or otherwise being really aggressive towards members of the larger global community. We're all going to agree to block them. So just be aware that that is happening behind the scenes. And there are hate groups on Mastodon, but you probably won't interact with them because moderators are doing their best to keep their community safe. DMs on Mastodon look really funky fresh, okay? Okay, so as you can see, DMs on Mastodon are they are essentially secret posts from you to another user. However, your instance moderators can still see them, so they're not private, okay? DMs are not private, they are direct, which is why they're called direct messages and not private messages, okay? So keep in mind that your instance moderators can still see everything you're chatting about. Don't share passwords, don't share personal information, don't share your address. None of that goes in DMs, okay? They are a way for you to communicate with one other person without flooding a timeline, okay? It's private from the home, local, or federated feeds that you have access to. So I sent a direct message to Emma 1 year ago-ish, 9 months ago, saying, hi, Emma, I'm so glad to see you because you're someone that I recognize from Twitter. And Emma was like, so happy you're here. And we had a little exchange. And this was something that only the two of us and our instance moderators knew about, but it wasn't posted to the larger feed. You can definitely send someone a DM. The interface will look similar to making a post. Just make extra sure it's actually a DM and not a post, and you'll be fine. Just gotta be a little careful because it's confusing. I'm hoping they update the user interface later so that it's less confusing, but it is what it is. Let's talk about the news feed, yeah? So let me go to my home, and when you're on home, you'll see messages from your instance moderators. You'll see this little air horn up here. You can click on it and you'll see announcements. They can post as many announcements as they want. So currently there are 5 announcements live, and it says that they'll be offline. Only this instance, not all of Mastodon, only this instance will be offline for 4 hours or so while they do a database migration. So they're just letting us know, and we can react to this like Discord. People like to put spoons and stuff. It's funny. And then you can scroll through different announcements related to your particular instance that you've joined, which is pretty cool. So that's announcements. That's how moderators communicate to you quickly and easily. They're essentially like a pinned message at the top of your home feed. First question, can I use Mastodon on my web browser? Yes, you can. You've seen me using it throughout this entire presentation. It's very web friendly. There are different modes that you can enter. So if I go into edit, preferences maybe, advanced web interface. This is a bit scary if you're unfamiliar with multi-column layouts, but a lot of people that have grown up on the web and have seen RSS feeds and some of the older design language of Web 2.0 or Web 1.0. I don't really know which 0.0 it is. You can click this button and it'll show you home in one. Oh, my hands aren't on the screen. Home on one column, local on another column, federated on another column. And you can click and drag the columns around. TweetDeck, yeah, exactly. TweetDeck is another great example of this. You can change them to show hashtags instead. You can watch multiple timelines happen at once. It's pretty cool. I don't like it because it overwhelms me, but that is an option you have. All right. And then there's a bunch of other things related like autoplay and whatever. Lots of cool things to configure there. And then there's also there's other web clients out there. The one that I actually use, I don't usually use the default one. I use one called fanp.social. It is the one that I like to browse on because it's a much cleaner interface. There's less clutter and it organizes things for you. Like it'll put recent boosts into a carousel. So if you just want to skip past boosts, you can do that. It's a lot more friendly in my opinion, but other people might not like it as much. Mobile apps. Let's talk about mobile apps, right? That's our next slide. Can I use Mastodon on my phone? Yes, you can. There is a official Mastodon app that is made by the Mastodon development team. You can find that here. There you go. So there are mobile apps that you can use. There are a lot of them because people like to use Mastodon on their phones. The official one is, in my opinion, the best looking, but the least feature rich. So it'll be the coolest looking, but it doesn't have as many features as some of the community built ones have. And that's just because they're working hard to develop a website, a platform, and a mobile app, whereas people that are just developing a mobile app can spend all of their attention on that. So some alternatives are Tusky, which is free, and that's a pretty popular one. There's another phone app called Federated, which is paid, but Federated is integrates with more than just Mastodon and integrates with the larger Fediverse. Megalodon is another one. If you just search on your app store, hey, tell me about phone apps for Mastodon, it'll show you a whole list. There's one for Apple, if you're an Apple user. There's one called the Mona app, which looks really, really nice. I don't have an Apple device, but it looks so good. I really like the screenshots from there. So lots of choices to use Mastodon on your phone. They all have pros and cons. You just need to do a little bit of research to check them out, which I highly recommend you do. The list you posted also links third-party apps. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Zaga. So lots of cool things to explore with how to browse Mastodon on your phone or mobile. Personally, what I do is on web, like I've said, I use fanp.social, and then on my phone, I also use fanp.social. I've saved the website as a application on my phone, which is something that modern smartphones allow you to do. And so I've embedded the fanp.social app onto my home screen, and now I can open fanp.social mobile or web. And that's how I prefer to use it, but you can choose how to use Mastodon however you like. So are there other Fediverse apps to try? Mastodon is most similar to Twitter. Are there other places that I can go try experiencing the Fediverse that communicate on similar protocols, but they serve different clientele? For example, there's an alternative to YouTube called PeerTube, and PeerTube is part of the Fediverse. It communicates with other websites that implement ActivityPub, which is the protocol of communication that runs behind the scenes. So if you want to try an alternative to YouTube that's run by an open source community, you could try PeerTube. There's PixelFed, which is an Instagram competitor that's, again, open source and run by the community. So PixelFed integrates nicely with these other Fediverse apps. There's blogging alternatives like Write Freely and a few others. So if you're thinking like, wow, Mastodon is really cool, I would love the Mastodon experience in some other format like YouTube or something like that, you can definitely Google them and find them. I will say that they aren't as widely adopted as Mastodon. Mastodon grew a lot when Twitter started being shaky with Elon Musk becoming CEO. So Mastodon has had a huge amount of growth, and other Fediverse apps less so. I don't really know much about them because I'm not on them myself, but they are out there. And if you want to experience them in their birthing stages where they're slowly growing more mature as a platform, you can totally check them out if you're feeling adventurous. Highly recommend it. I think there's a lot of cool stuff to be found out there. I just haven't done it myself. Let's talk about pros and cons of Mastodon. Why would I use Mastodon instead of other social medias, right? So here are some things that I think are cool about Mastodon that are fairly unique to this platform. It's community run and it's open source developed. So you can actually go read all of the source code for Mastodon. You can download it yourself and run it locally so that you have your own private instance. You can contribute to the code if you are tech savvy and want to help develop new features for it or fix bugs. There are not ads. It's not corporate run. So unless your instance is choosing to push ads into your home feed or your local feed, you're not going to see them. Ads are community. Ads do not fit well with the community focus that Mastodon is trying to achieve. So there aren't advertisers there. Again, this is free to use and it's free to participate in. And there are places for you to contribute to your instance moderators that are doing server admin. They are using their electricity. They're spending their money to purchase server hardware. You can contribute to their Patreon or Ko-Fi. A lot of them have those sorts of systems set up. Other people just run it out of the goodness of their heart and they don't need repayment. But it's all usually donation based. You don't have to like pay to enter Mastodon. And if you have to pay to enter Mastodon, you're looking at the wrong instance and you should go somewhere else. Because there are instances out there where you can exist as free, which is super cool. And yes, data collection. Data collection is extremely minimal. It's basically just your IP address, and even that is anonymized. It's not linked to your specific personhood. But they have to share some information to be able to federate you with other instances. And obviously, your data lives on someone's server somewhere in their house or in their garage or in some data center, depending on which instance you join. But they're not collecting data to sell to third parties. There's no data collection in the sense of like your physical location or your health information or anything like that. They try and keep it as small as possible, just what's needed to communicate with other instances, and it's all anonymized, so it can't be tracked back to you. There's an established culture on Mastodon. There's a bunch of new social medias that are cropping up. Co-host, Blue Sky, Threads, obviously. There's a lot of new platforms arising that don't have established culture yet, and they are a little bit slow, or things feel a little like the Wild West. There's not like a community of people to lean on and rely on because they're all forming the community together. What I really like about Mastodon is it's had 5 years of maturity to grow a community that has a common set of ideals, and I really, really appreciate that about Mastodon. I think the established culture is super, super helpful. Again, if an instance dies, we've covered this before. If an instance dies, you can migrate your stuff to another instance before it dies. Obviously, once it's gone, you just have to start fresh on another instance. But generally, server admins will let you know, hey, unfortunately, we can't continue funding our server. We're taking it down in the next week. Please migrate yourself to another instance. You'll get that heads up, and you can migrate your account with all of your followers and all of your posts preserved somewhere else, which is super, super cool. Blue Sky looks promising, but it'll take some time. Yeah, exactly. Whereas Mastodon already has people on it using it. So just an alternative. I'm not trying to convince you that Mastodon is the best. I'm just saying why I personally like Mastodon. Flat. There's no qualifier to that. I don't like Mastodon better than other places. I wish sometimes that Mastodon was more like Twitter without the stinkiness, but it's okay. And then it's free and open source, which is super cool. And then it's extensible. So obviously there's a lot of phone apps. There's a lot of websites where you can browse Mastodon rather than using the default experience. People are making plugins and creating new ways to interact with Mastodon content all the time. And that's because of how open and accessible and extensible Mastodon is, which I think is really cool. Content open beyond like no hate and no violence. That's up to the instance admins, Neo. Mastodon is not a corporate instance that decides how instances run. So whatever your instance chooses to support is what they support. There are hate groups on Mastodon, but generally they're blocked by everybody. I personally haven't seen any hate crimes on Mastodon myself, but I know they happen because we've blocked instances. My instances blocked other instances. But they can't govern who creates a server because it's all free and open source. So they just have no ability to choose. What's this about threads? This is the last slide before we end. So we're doing pretty much exactly good on time. Some of you may have heard that the new social media Threads is built on the same protocol as Mastodon and might be able to communicate with people on Mastodon. And that is true. They both implement a protocol called ActivityPub. And what I mean by protocol is just an agreement to communicate along the same rules. So when Mastodon sends a message, it might look similarly to when Threads sends a message. And while that connection between Threads and Mastodon doesn't exist yet, people at Meta have said they would like Threads to soon support Mastodon and Threads Federation, where the servers are talking to one another. And you can already tell that Threads is developing their own federated servers because everyone on Threads right now has threads.net as their home instance. And I am certain that other home instances on Threads are going to crop up soon. So they're going to have a similar model for federation. However, obviously Mastodon doesn't collect data and Threads does, and it's uncertain of how it would look to be a Mastodon user talking to a Threads user. No one is really certain about what the specifics about that are. I'm not smart enough to talk about that, but I just wanted to say it is likely that in the future, people on Threads and people on Mastodon will be able to follow and communicate with one another and share posts and things like that. It's just that Threads has basically taken the ActivityPub protocol and added a whole bunch of other stuff on top. So they've taken Mastodon's open source foundation and they've taken out chronological timelines and added algorithmic timelines. They've added advertisement. They've added all sorts of data collection because Meta is a company looking to run a business. So they're collecting all of this data and doing advertising and trying to make money, whereas Mastodon isn't governed by one specific business or government. So they're not making money. They're not looking to do anything with your data. Okay, we've talked about Threads. I don't think we need to go too deep into that because it's not hyper important for understanding Mastodon itself. Any last questions before we end the stream? I mean, if you're an artist, content creator, musician, if you're looking to push your content in front of other people to make money, to support your livelihood, highly recommend thinking about Threads because that's where a large audience is. You're going to have a larger audience to serve your posts to than Mastodon. However, I still think Mastodon is an attractive option for future social media as it continues to grow. I really like the open source nature of it all. So lingering thought is, I wonder why I don't get my account verification email. That's probably just because their instance is running a little slow right now with new signups. And you'll just have to be patient because, again, it's people have bought the server hardware to run this on, and maybe their server doesn't have enough resources to send emails super quickly. So they might batch emails and then send them every hour or something like that. You'll just have to wait a little bit. But I'm sorry it's not instant. So thank you all so much for hanging out. It's great to see you.